You know, I was hunkered down in some godforsaken corner of the Middle East, dodging IEDs and trying to keep my squad alive, when my phone buzzed with the worst news a guy could get. My grandpa's old homestead, 1,200 acres of rolling Virginia hills that's been in our family since the Civil War days, had been snatched up by this HOA queen named Karen Blackwell, sold off like it was just another foreclosure bargain while I was out there bleeding for Uncle Sam. I mean, picture this. Me, Staff Sergeant Jack Harlan, fresh off a tour where I'd earned my scars keeping the peace, coming home to find strangers bulldozing my family's legacy. The same dirt where Grandpa, a Bronze Star vet from Korea, built everything with his bare hands after the war, using his GI Bill to turn scrubland into something real, something ours. And there she was, Karen, this polished viper in her black Lexus, smirking like she'd just won the lottery, fencing off our little family plot where Grandpa's buried, his headstone staring back at me through chain link like a prisoner of war. Man, that hit me harder than any ambush ever could. It started innocent enough, or so I thought. Grandpa had passed while I was deployed, and I'd set up auto payments for the taxes, figuring that'd keep things square. But nope. Turns out Karen and her cronies at the Oak Ridge Meadows HOA had cooked up this scheme, redirecting my payments with some clerical error to fake a delinquency, then swooping in to buy 600 acres for peanuts, like $1,800 an acre when it's worth 10 times that easy. I roll up in my beat-up truck, uniform still creased from the flight out of Germany, and there's Karen in my driveway, ruler in hand, measuring some imaginary violation, her voice all honeyed venom as she says, "Well, soldier, deployments don't pay the bills, do they? Your grandpa should have planned better. Civic duty waits for no one." I stood there, jet-lagged and furious, clenching my fists while she waved these phony papers in my face, claiming eminent domain for her fancy subdivision where Silicon Valley rejects pay $500,000 to pretend they're country folk, complaining about the rooster crows and cow smells like they've never seen a real day's work. But deep down, it wasn't just the land. It was the betrayal, you know? Me fighting for freedom overseas, only to come home and find my own backyard turned into enemy territory, and Karen treating me like I was the intruder, filing a restraining order faster than you can say, PTSD stereotype, spreading whispers on the neighborhood app about my unstable veteran vibes to paint me as the bad guy, all while her landscaping gig raked in fat contracts from the HOA funds she'd siphoned off. She didn't stop at the legal jabs either. Oh no, Karen escalated like a cornered cat, installing cameras pointed right at my remaining land, hosting safety meetings where she'd rant about undesirables like me, threatening their perfect lawns. And one night, I catch her goons staking out Grandpa's old apple orchard, crushing heirloom trees under their boots while the air stank of diesel and spite. I confronted her the next day at the community pool, her crown jewel, all algae green and neglected despite the maintenance fees she'd pocketed, and she just leaned in, eyes cold as steel, whispering, "Standards, Jack. Some folks just don't fit in suburbia. Maybe you should stick to foxholes." It burned, man, that smugness, fueled by her greed for control, her jealousy of real roots in a world of McMansions, turning neighbors against me with lies about violent outbursts, even bribing a deputy to hassle me with noise complaints every time I fired up the tractor. But here's where it gets personal. I was down to my last $300. Divorce had cleaned me out, and watching her destroy what Grandpa built, that quiet strength he'd passed down, it lit a fire in me. Military training kicks in. You don't charge blind, you scout, you find the weak spots, and boy did I find them. See, Grandpa wasn't just a farmer. He was smart, the kind who read fine print like it was the Bible, and buried in those yellowed 50s deeds from the state archives, after I drove 150 miles on fumes to dig 'em up, was the golden ticket. He'd quietly bought up the subsurface rights under all of Oak Ridge back in '58 for chump change, thinking oil or minerals might pay off someday. But what it really meant was I owned the ground beneath every one of those 40 luxury pads, foundations and all, worth about $38 mil if you tallied it right. Armed with that, plus proof the HOA wasn't even legit, never renewed their incorporation, operating like a shadow government collecting dues without authority. I linked up with this sharp attorney, Emily Ruiz, a pro bono firebrand who'd lost her dad's spread to similar scams, and we started building our case, tracing Karen's embezzlement, like the $120K beautification deal that lined her pockets while the community fountain ran dry. Neighbors started whispering too. Take Betty Hawthorne, this sweet retired nurse whose hubby passed last year. Karen threatened to line her house over $30 in late fees, calling her grief no excuse for sloppiness. And that flipped Betty, who rallied folks in a secret chat group, sharing horror stories of fines for hanging bird feeders or painting mailboxes the wrong shade of beige. Things heated up when Karen caught wind. She sued me for a cool meal, claiming my rogue cattle damaged her precious turf, describing my grandpa's old herd like they were weapons of mass destruction. And her lawyer, this slick suit from the city, barked in court, "Your Honor, this veteran's turning a neighborhood into a war zone." But we countered hard, exposing her ultra-vires moves, buying land beyond their charter, violating their own bylaws from 65 that Betty dug up from her attic, brittle pages proving the whole grab was illegal from jump. And the sabotage? Man, she went low. Poisoning my well, cutting fences so my cows wandered onto the highway, one getting hit by a rig in the dead of night. Blood on the asphalt, mixing with my rage as Karen spun it on local news as veteran negligence endangering families. I cornered her once in the hardware store lot, voice low and steady. "Karen, you think destroying legacies makes you powerful? It's just making you enemies." She hissed back. "Power's what keeps order, soldier. Chaos like yours doesn't belong here." But her eyes flickered with fear, that mask cracking as her control slipped. The turning point came from unlikely allies. Mike Donnelly, a grizzled Navy vet next door, pulled me aside at a feed store, griping about Karen's uniform lawn violations on his prize yard. And together we organized town halls at the library, teaching folks their rights, watching attendance swell from a handful to a crowd, folks nodding as Emily laid out the fraud. Betty's Bridge Club turned spy network, loosening tongues over Pinot to snag Karen's confession on tape. Her bragging about forging docs. "Those clerks are idiots. 1 digit off and poof, delinquency." And we traced her Swiss stash, $1.80 mill siphoned straight from the sale. Her desperation peaked with a frame job, hiring a look-alike to trash a bar yelling threats in my name, planting booze in my truck for a bogus DUI, but we had recordings, timestamps, alibis ironclad. Federal eyes got involved, FBI freezing her accounts, her escape jet to Zurich grounded before takeoff. And by then, the community was in revolt, 35 signatures demanding her ouster, Mike's vet buddies rolling in on Harleys like a freedom convoy, circling the meeting hall where it all climaxed. Picture the scene, hall packed, tension electric, Karen at the podium in her power suit, voice quivering under the facade as she offers a compromise. Half my land back for twice what she paid, dropping charges like it's mercy. I rise slow, projector firing up behind me, beaming those subsurface deeds large as life. "Folks, I own the dirt under your homes, every basement, every pool. Grandpa's gift, unassailable." Gasps ripple, her lawyer bolts like a rat, and Betty hits play on that recording, Karen's own words damning her in surround sound. Then bam, feds step in, badges flashing. "Karen Blackwell, you're under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy against a service member." She shrieks, "This is a witch hunt, I built this place!" As cuffs click, heels scraping linoleum while vets stand salute, not for her but for justice. And the room erupts in cheers, bikes revving outside like thunderous applause, her empire crumbling in real time, sweeter than any medal. In the end, she got 4 years federal time. Coughed up $1.70 mill restitution. The crooked assessor did too, lost his badge forever. I got my full spread back, sold those underground rights at a discount. $7 mill over years, no interest. Call it neighborly after their ordeal. And the new board, with Betty at the helm, runs transparent, no more tyrants. We turned the homestead into a vet retreat, started a scholarship fund from the winnings, helping military kids through school so no family sacrifices twice. I even found love with the librarian who helped unearth those deeds, adopted a couple orphans from a fallen buddies line. Life's full circle, you know. But here's the rub that keeps me up sometimes. Was it all greed? Or did Karen start out just wanting order, spiraling into monster mode when power corrupted? Makes you wonder about folks in charge everywhere. HOAs, towns even bigger. Drop a comment. What's your take on justice like this? Ever deal with a neighborhood bully? Or think sometimes the little guy overplays the revenge? Share your stories. Hit like if it hit home. Subscribe for more real talk tales. Let's expose these power trips together.